Dzień dobry.
Welcome to the channel. As you can see, James is learning a little bit of Polish.
I'm not as good as Sine is, but I'm getting there. And hopefully with a couple more visits to Poland, we will be like pros, I think.
Yeah.
We're planning a visit again. We've just gotten back from Wrocław. And it was so good that we can't wait to go back.
Yes, my goodness.
We've got so many recommendations. We've got Krakow, we've got Gdansk, we've got Warsaw, which is Warsaw. Thank you for all those people that helped us correct it. And there's just so many places, even Poznań.
Yes, and a lot of people mentioned that Krakow would be the best place to go if we want a mountain feel.
Mountain feel, because you can go an hour out and then you can go ski. I think it's the Zakopane Mountains. So you can ski and you can do some hiking. Like, that is what I want to do, man. That's the next holiday.
That is like my ultimate favorite thing. And you know, being South African, we are so passionate about nature and just being outside, outdoor stuff. So I think it would be super nice when the weather allows it to just really go and explore Poland's natural beauty, the nature.
Don't get me wrong, we love the cities because we are not used to the beauty of like the old towns, and Polish old towns are all UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and we absolutely love the stunning architecture and beautiful buildings. But just as much as we love that, we also love the beautiful nature side.
It makes us feel at home. It really does. And you know, that I would love to go and explore Poland's beautiful nature. So what is on the list for today?
On today's video, we are doing a bit of a history lesson.
Alrighty.
On the Warsaw Uprising, or the Warsaw Uprising, which obviously happened in World War II, where Poles were basically fighting against control of Russian control, and basically trying to, fighting for freedom and independence. And that is a bit about what happened and what went down. I don't know exactly the dates on when this happened, but that is why we're watching the video.
We've recently been watching a Netflix show called...
It's called something about the Cold War.
It's called Turning Point, the Bomb and the Cold War. And that's really a very good documentary. It's given us a lot of insight into what Russia's, plan was and probably still is. So we'd love to just dive a bit deeper into these aspects. So I'm very, very excited for this video.
I would highly recommend that Netflix series as well if you are into history, because it gives you so many aspects that YouTube videos don't, and interviews, and it's really good. But
heartbreaking.
If you enjoy these videos though, and you want us to do more of those type of videos, then please subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up so that we can produce more of this content. We really, really do enjoy making this type of content, and we love learning about Poland, and we love learning about the history as well. Super sad past, but an exciting time
ahead.
Where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives me like a positive feel.
I have a very positive feeling about Poland, and like I said in my previous video, if anyone goes against Poland, they'll go against me.
So, are you ready?
Gotowi?
Zaczynamy.
For 5 years, execution, torture, and vicious oppression has been the fate of the Poles. But resistance, the will to fight the Nazis who occupy their homeland, has been kept alive. In the face of unspeakable brutality, the Polish Home Army, the volunteer force of resistance fighters secretly living in Poland, has continued to grow. For these fighters, discovery meant instant death. But with sabotage, indirection, and a message of hope for the people, they kept the Germans from ever feeling secure in occupied Poland. And now it was time. Russian shelling.
I saw in the comments that someone said that Hitler mentioned that the Poles were some of the most intelligent, people. And I think maybe that's why he had his sights on them, Maybe he was very threatened by the Polish.
I think he probably felt very threatened, and also he wanted control. And he probably felt like if he didn't control Poland, that Poland could potentially control them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That could have been his intention. But Poles are super intellectual, and they've got this unwavering spirit in them that I think it's hard to match with any other country.
I've never seen another country that gets up, falls down, gets up, falls down, gets up, stronger. It's incredible to see, and it's so cool to learn about this history.
But a big theory and a big reason why Poles believe that they have got the power to do this is because they are based on Christianity.
Yeah.
Religion that we are as well, and it's given them the power and the strength to fight and be, rise from the ashes every single time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yelling could be heard in the streets of Warsaw. Liberation was at hand. But the home army wasn't going to wait for the Russians to march into their capital and return to them whatever portion of their country they felt generous enough to give. The Warsaw Uprising was about to begin.
It's actually Warsaw, the Warsaw Uprising.
A few months ago, James was invited to Poland to attend one of their massive game jams
It's
and
me.
observe what they're doing to help grow the games industry there.
Did you recommend this video for me?
With any luck, he'll get back there for their game jam in September, and I'll be hiding in his luggage to go visit my homeland. Because while in Warsaw, he fell in love with the city and its history. So much so that he worked with the folks running the game jam to help sponsor this special episode so he could talk about one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. So, let's begin. August 1st, 1944. The Allies have landed in Normandy. Rome has fallen, and the Soviets have pushed the German war machine off Russian soil. And in Warsaw, a people oppressed for 5 long years are about to rise up against their oppressors. But what precipitates this is the approach of the Soviet army, because the history between the Soviets and Poland is a fraught one. In 1939, as allies of Hitler, Soviet forces stormed over the Polish border, taking Poland by surprise and collapsing Polish defenses. Up to that point, while not winning the war against Germany, the Polish army was taking their toll, slowing down German forces and making them pay for every inch of ground. But to do this, almost all of their forces were sent to the west, never expecting an attack from the supposedly neutral Soviet Union. When Soviet forces poured over...
It's like they waited for the perfect opportunity to jump when Poland and their army were at their weakest point or vulnerable, and they just saw the opportunity and took it.
But also, like they said, seemingly neutral. So
They were technically supposed to be fighting against Germany,
exactly.
and then they just saw it as an opportunity to say, well, we're going to go grab Poland now.
And that, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the time that Stalin was in power. Now that man, there's a lot of things I can say about him, but I'll get banned from YouTube if I do. So
I don't want to get banned.
so I'm not going to say it.
over the eastern border, it spelt the end for the Polish army. 2 weeks later, Poland would surrender, and more than half would be annexed by the Soviet Union, until they in turn lost it to the Nazis, double-crossing them. And while not as systematically brutal as Nazi occupation,
It's like
the
double
Soviet
cross
domination
over
of
double
Poland
cross.
was still horrific. They rounded up and shot 22,000 Poles in the Katian Forest. And even when they joined the Allies, they refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of the Polish government in exile. All of which
How's that? They just lined up 22,000 people and executed them. Just killed them.
The Soviets have so there is like something that I've come to really realize. The hatred that is between countries. Do you know who's suffering under all of the war?
The people.
The people that have nothing to do with anything. And it's these big, greedy, selfish world leaders that are making all of these things happen, or made it all happen, causing death, starvation, putting people in concentration camps. And the people are suffering underneath, while all these rich world leaders who are calling these shots are living a lavish life, feeding their bellies till they're so fat. It infuriates me. It really infuriates me how many innocent people's lives were lost because of greed. Millions. And that is why the Soviet Union just wanted more and more and more. And it's like, still continuing today.
There's a lot of the Cold War reminiscence that is still present in today's society. Someone has even gone to say as far as, has the Cold War even ended?
I think that like maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, they will, this era of our lives will also be classified as maybe the second Cold War.
Could be.
Because
there's so much tense feeling, you can feel it wherever you go there. You look on social media, you look on the news, you listen to people's comments, you listen to people's conversations. There is a lot of tension that's going on at the moment, and it's scary.
It's just so unnecessary. And once again, I say that it's the innocent civilians that are suffering under all of these greedy, selfish leaders and rulers.
I can guarantee you that if you had to put the vote in the masses, if you had to give the vote to the masses of what they would want to do, they would just want peace. I just want peace.
Yeah, just let people be. Stop being so power hungry, And if there's a small percentage of people that watch our channel, this is the message that I would want to deliver, It's so unnecessary. Just let people be. Stop being so power hungry. But anyways,
deep words and very true though. I kind of feel the exact same way as you, but hopefully, these videos get out there and people see it, and I don't know, brings change. It's kind of why we're doing a lot of these Poland videos, and it's why we will be doing a lot more similar videos in the future as well.
Yeah, and I also believe that, it's not because of history, it doesn't mean that we have to hate each other, because at the end of the day, it's not the people versus the people. It's not the people that decided to do all of those things. It was the big leaders up there. So, yeah.
This is a long break, but it's so true though, because so many people hate each other nowadays based on their nationality, and it's not necessarily them. They're probably good people, but because of the history in the past and what nationality they belong to,
and the choices that their leaders made on their behalf.
It's very sad, and I wish we didn't have to be in a position like that, but unfortunately we live in a society where that is prevalent and that happens. Should we play?
Yes.
Which means that many in the Polish resistance believed that the only way they'd have a seat at the table after the war is if they liberated their own country. Which leads us back to the 1st of August. The Russians are a few dozen kilometers away. As their advance continues, the Germans are guaranteed to fall. It's now or never. It's time to rise up. The previous night, a tense meeting had occurred, and W hour, the start of the Polish uprising, was declared. The troops had trained for a surprise attack at dawn, but at the last minute, plans changed.
Where are the next?
The uprising was now set for 5 p.m. But it's hard to hide that many people spoiling for a fight. And by 5 p.m., sporadic engagements had already broken out across the city. The Polish troops were barely armed, many without weapons at all, charging in with homemade submachine guns or captured German rifles. They took the gasworks, the power and water plants, and some vital production facilities. But they were repulsed in key locations as well. The bridges, the airport, the rail line, and the main police station all remained in German hands. Most crucially, though, they failed to link up. By night, groups were erecting barricades. The city was now divided, and though there would be some coordination and reinforcement, many pockets were now fighting in their own small wars. Then the bombs begin to fall. The Luftwaffe is laying waste to the city.
Can you imagine how scary this is? We're not talking like soldiers fighting here. We're talking about residents, normal people that were living in the city, that were subjected to being, number one, gated or barricaded in, and also bombs dropping, war going on. It's not soldiers that were fighting the Russians over here, it's normal civilians. It was a combination, but a majority of the people here were just normal people fighting against soldiers.
And I guess they knew that they had to either fight or they would die.
There was a piece, I think it was in the Unconquered video that we did, where there was just a civilian that ran up to a Russian tank like, and threw, I think, like a bomb or grenade at something. Like, that's
it's desperation at that point.
But it's also like the braveness. Like, you can understand why Poles maybe have such a dark history and why many of them have PTSD, like the older ones, because they went through a real traumatic time.
And
it was prolonged.
It was a long period of just again and again and again. And
we're not even just talking about World War II. We're talking about centuries of always fighting.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like built into them. They've just been fighting their whole life.
Oh, man.
City, not differentiating between civilian areas and those controlled by the resistance. The Polish Home Army doesn't have a single anti-aircraft gun. And all eyes look for signs of the Soviet Air Force, but no planes sporting the Red Star of Russia are anywhere to be seen. 4 days into the uprising, the true atrocities start. On orders of Heinrich Himmler, German troops begin going house to house, shooting every inhabitant they find. The old, the infirmed, women, children, all were gunned down. Over the course of a week, tens of thousands of civilians are murdered as they huddled in their homes. But the Polish resistance didn't break. The Home Army ground the Germans to a halt, though its strongest battalions were also its most tragic, the Grey Ranks. They were made up of the Boy Scouts. Older scouts were frontline troops, better organized, better...
Boy Scouts, like kids. We're talking probably like 13 to 18-year-olds fighting them.
Trained, better disciplined than most of the volunteers. The younger members ran courier duty, while the Girl Scouts served as combat medics, nurses, and munition haulers.
Bless their souls, really. That's very noble.
I think a lot of them that survived like probably went through a real traumatic time.
Yeah, of course. Shame. But, I mean, the fact that they were willing to do that, and at such a young age, really, really incredible.
And they all swore an oath. I pledge to you that I shall serve the Grey Ranks, safeguard the secrets of the organization, obey orders, and not hesitate to sacrifice my life. And they would hold this oath all the way unto their death. They fought house to house, door to door, in the chaotic melee of city fighting. Classmates died side by side. First loves torn apart by machine gun fire. They referred to each other as bees because they were a hive, a collective, and they would sting the Germans. They fought with the fury only possessed by the young and the righteous, and they pushed the Nazis from the burnt-out remains of the Warsaw Ghetto. They cut into the German line far enough to liberate one of the concentration camps. 384 Jews who had survived the extermination of the ghetto were still imprisoned there, and they took up arms to fight against those who had enslaved them, who had murdered everyone they knew. But then, the young fighters of the Grey Ranks were faced with the unthinkable. Something I don't know as a human being you could face. German tanks rolled forward, but it wasn't the 100 tons of steel and death that stopped the scouts. They had faced tanks before, armed only with rifles and hand grenades. No, it was what was in front of the tanks, because in front of those tanks were women. Some burned or beaten, all Polish. The Nazis were using them as human shields. It was this the scouts couldn't face. So the advance turned to a stalemate, and still aid did not come. By the end of August, the undersupplied Polish forces had to withdraw from Warsaw's Old Town, making their way through the sewers to more easily held points. For nearly a month, the soldiers and many of the civilians had been living off barley from a brewery the Grey Ranks had captured early in the fighting.
It's so sad. Like you're fighting, you haven't got a home. You're fighting for your freedom. You're barely getting enough food in. You're eating barley to like energize you and keep you going. And at the same time, you're seeing people die around you. Like, can you imagine living in that time? Like,
no.
It's so sad.
Soon even water was scarce, with waterways clogged with corpses, and Germans cutting off remaining water mains as they advanced.
Germans were so cruel.
On the 15th of September, Soviet forces...
We're talking about the Germans in the 1940s.
We're talking about the Nazi party.
Yeah. So, like, that's also something like, we live here now, and we haven't seen any of that kind of, like...
But the people...
bad attitude.
The people back then...
But Yeah,
The party.
We are referring to the Nazi party, and they were relentless, like no soul. There's no soul in there, really.
Appeared on the far banks of the Vistula. A crossing attempt is made, but Soviet command only sent the lightly armored division of Polish volunteers who had joined them after the fall of Poland to try to relieve Warsaw. Of the 1,600 men who went, more than 1,000 fell to German guns. The Soviets decide that a crossing was impractical, and no further attempt would be made to aid the Polish partisans. Meanwhile, America finally attempts an airdrop of supplies, but 80% of it is accidentally dropped behind German lines. American forces will not try again. The resistance is shelled day and night.
What
Great
stupid
mortars with
thing to
shells
do.
2 feet in diameter rain down on them. Rockets slam into the few remaining upright buildings, and tanks hammer away at foxholes for scouts armed with no more than rifles. The Germans advance on the Mokotów district. The resistance is pushed back. They enter one of the major hospitals under Polish control, and they execute every wounded soldier and all of the hospitals.
You've got no heart if you go into a hospital and shoot people that can't even, they're injured from fighting,
Yeah.
and now you're going to execute
They
them.
had no soul. It was like they were a machine. No heart, no emotion, no soul.
Indoctrinated, brainwashed.
Brainwashed completely. Like, yeah.
But I think that they probably thought that what they were doing was right at that time.
Well, I think that if you think doing that under any circumstances is right, then you have something seriously wrong with your brain.
But that's what they were brainwashed into thinking.
The hospital
No.
personnel. Again, the resistance flees through the sewers, but 150 of them exit too early and are killed by German troops. The Poles now control only a few square blocks right against the river. They were surrounded, starving, outgunned, and outnumbered. And yet, they fought. Not like bees, but like wasps. Every house was a stronghold, every doorway a bunker, and they fought within sight of the Soviet army across the river. Yet no aid came. They fought with the
The Soviets were literally waiting, and they were not prepared to sacrifice their own soldiers because they wanted Poland.
Yeah.
So they were basically letting people die, washing them out, and were waiting for the opportunity to seize it for themselves.
It's just
determination of the damned.
disgusting.
They fought and fell. The outcome was inevitable. Surrender had to come. Germans wary of fighting and interested in concentrating on the Soviet threat offered terms. The entire population of Warsaw was to be expelled, but no one was to be executed. The terms were accepted. The resistance fighters spent their last days forging documents for the Jewish members among them. 15,000 of the home army were taken away as POWs, and 500,000 civilians were shipped out of the city. The lucky ones were simply let go, with no homes, no food, no jobs. But 60,000 ended up in the death camps, and 90,000 more found themselves unloaded at forced labor yards. And after the surrender, Himmler said, "The city must completely disappear from the surface of the earth, and serve only as a transport station for the Wehrmacht. No stone can remain standing. Every building must be razed to its foundation." And in one of the last great acts of senseless destruction perpetrated by the Nazi regime, German engineers took flamethrowers and dynamite and systematically, building by building, block by block, wiped Warsaw off the map. By the time 3 months later, when the Russians finally crossed the Vistula, 85% of the buildings in Warsaw had been leveled. Monuments, schools, libraries, historical sites, all reduced
so sad.
to rubble and ash. If you go to the historic district of Warsaw,
This is where 90% of Warsaw was completely wiped out. It was during this uprising, and that is basically what they rebuilt through the photos and paintings of a very famous artist. But like they built 90% of it back up. It's crazy to think that they would, after going through so much, still have the willpower to like rebuild it.
Yeah.
saw today. What you're actually seeing is a reconstruction, an attempt to rebuild based on old photographs and paintings. If you walk the halls of the royal castle, you're not seeing a building that's been standing for 400 years. Instead, you walk through a palace completed in 1984. And in the rubble of that city, lay 70% of the young people of the gray ranks. But their sacrifice was not forgotten, for their nation still stands, long after the 1,000-year Reich was wiped from the earth.
Wow.
Wow. That touches on a different level. Like I knew the Warsaw Uprising was pretty sad, but I didn't realize that it was like kids that were fighting and civilians.
I feel, history is so brutal. There's so many things that happen that it's like almost difficult to believe that it's even real or even possible that people who call themselves human beings could do stuff like that. That is absolutely atrocious. But seeing how, the Polish, even as young children, were so, dedicated to protecting their country that they gave their lives. The ladies were helping treat the injured, and the boys were fighting. It just shows the spirit. The Polish, every time we are just blown away again and again by how strong the Polish spirit is.
I always I tried to put myself in like people's shoes when you're going through all of that, to try and understand like how you would feel. And yeah, I don't know how I would feel being a kid, like, and seeing all of this unfold in front of you. You fight, people die, you're starving, you're seeing your family die, you're seeing your friends die, you're seeing so much gruesome and so much ugliness, and I don't know, it must have been a horrible time to have lived through.
But what I'm happy for now is look at them now.
Look at where they are now.
Look at that comeback that they made once again.
It's probably the comeback of the millennial.
Yeah,
the millennium.
Honestly, one of the strongest armies, a big, massive tech hub. Poland is.
I can't wait to visit Warsaw. I think it's probably just as historic as walking through Berlin, because so much has happened there, so much fighting, so much, animosity, so many wars, so much history, rich, architecture and everything like that. Even though majority of it was rebuilt, there's a lot of memorials there. I think it's on our list, and we'll definitely be making a visit there at some point, and visiting and walking where wars and really bad stuff happened.
Yeah, but we admire the Polish spirit. I think I could only wish to have a quarter of the Polish spirit. The unstoppable, fearless bravery. It's really admirable.
I think you've got some Polish blood in you, because you are fearless and fierce, and sometimes scare me how fiery you are.
Thank you, I guess.
But yeah, that is us for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, that you stay up to date with all of our latest videos. We're really enjoying this series and really enjoying these videos, so please keep recommending them.
Yeah, and join us in the conversation, in the comments down below. We really love interacting with you guys, reading a bit more about history, so please do comment down below, and please remember to subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you don't miss our uploads every week.
This is us for today though, so
Beyond Borders,
over and out.